All right, so Freedom Team, good morning. It is good to see everybody. Always, we are here every Tuesday. It's great to have you with us. If you're a guest, welcome. You're always welcome to come join us. We do this every week. So bringing somebody in, Freedom Team agents, different agents that we work with. Sometimes, in EXP, out of EXP. We're all part of EXP, but this is not an EXP training at all. This is all about just helping you guys grow your business, and it's great to have you here. I'll tell you, the ones I see coming in here regularly are the ones that seem to be doing the best in their business. No surprise. I mean, just plug in to what's going on. There's so much you can learn here, and maybe the topic for the day may or may not be something that you want to focus on, but you'll pick up nuggets. You'll pick up nuggets from people in the group as we're sharing different things and doing things here. So anyway, it's great to have you with us as always. Kathy, why don't you go ahead and introduce Aaron? I'm dying to hear this training, by the way.
Yes, it's going to be so good. So,
joke.
so again, Aaron, thank you so much for being here with us today. So let me give you guys a little background on Aaron. So he launched his career back in 2006. He's actually in southeastern area of Florida. And then we all know, if we've been around a long time, we know the 2008 market hit, and really, instead of shrinking back, he really rose. He grew his business 25% year over year. He closed over 100 homes a year for a decade. So he really learned just how to thrive through that market. So he's personally listed up to 140 homes a year by himself, averaging 12 to 15 listings a month. And now he coaches about 60 to 70 different agents nationwide. And what he did, his business, and built his business a lot on, is what he's going to teach us today. It's strategies to be really competitive in the probate area, and to learn how to really build a big business, because that's where he did a lot of his, as you'll hear today, in that space. And so, over 140 homes a year listed as a solo agent, pretty doggone good. And, over a decade, did 100 deals annually. So, Aaron, we are super excited to have you and listen to your great wealth of knowledge on this topic that you're going to share today. So thanks again for being here, and we're going to turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So, in thinking about what we could have a conversation about during our time together, I was struck by this idea that different environments require different strategies. So, for instance, let's say that you guys were down in sunny South Florida. We have some nice beaches down here, and we'd all decided that we were going to go to the beach together. Well, we would need a specific strategy, because that is a very specific environment, yes? So go ahead and drop in the chat if we wanted to enjoy our experience, Chuck, at the beach. What would we need to bring with us? What would be our strategy? Drop in the chat some things you would bring with you for that specific environment. Tim said beer, a towel, sunscreen, umbrella. Yeah, maybe some snacks, right? Chairs, something to sit in. Yeah. So all of you guys know the strategy for the beach, apparently. Yeah. Now let's imagine for a moment, Jeff, that we completely changed environments. So instead of going to the beach, we decided, you know what? Let's go skiing. So we went to a completely different environment, right? And because it's a different environment, that requires a different strategy. So drop in the chat what would be needed for that specific environment if we want to enjoy our experience while we're skiing. Yeah, Aaron's jet, like that, Higgy. Nice to see you, brother. Warmer clothes, crown with flask. That seems to be a reoccurring theme with this group. A coat. Yeah. Maybe those warm things you put in your gloves, right? Some goggles, some chapstick. Okay, we got it. Now, what would happen if we tried to use the strategy for the beach for skiing? Would we enjoy our experience very much? No. Okay. Yeah, Brad says we freeze. That's true. And depending on how cold it is, you might die of hypothermia, yes? Well, here's the deal, is that economic environments, which therefore affect the real estate environment, change. And as such, our strategies need to change. You know what I've noticed for the last 2 or 3 years? People using the same strategy they were using 2 or 3 years ago, expecting different results. Yep, Brad's, he's pondering. That is not a strategy that will lead to favorable outcomes, yes? Now, how do I know this to be true? Well, I started selling real estate in 2006. Anybody on this call selling real estate back then? Dating ourselves here? Okay, few people, good. So you guys know what that environment was like, but nobody else on this call does. So I'll share it with you. I'll try to paint a picture with words. That environment consisted of massive amounts of FOMO. People feel like they were missing out. They were taking out lines of credit on their homes to buy additional homes, speculating in hopes they would continue to keep going up in value. Properties were going up in price 15, 18, 20% year over year. They actually had a loan product, guys, called a no-doc loan, where you could go into a loan officer and say, hey, I make $150,000 a year. And you know what they said? We believe you. With no documentation. Unbelievable, right? They thought that would actually work out well. Well, I was selling real estate at that time, and I was selling real estate in Gainesville because I went to the University of Florida, go Gators. And at the time, a strategy that was working phenomenally well, A, was working with buyers because everybody was buying, yes or yes. B, at the time, anybody remember condo conversions? Put a little lipstick on a pig, yeah? A 50-year-old apartment building and sell that thing? Yep. And that was working, man. I was 26 years old, made $115,000. I thought I was walking in tall cotton, to speak y'all Southerners language. Yeah. And then 2007 and 8 happened. Oh, the environment changed, did it not? We went from at the beach to winter. Like that. Now, to paint a picture of what that environment looked like, prices going in the opposite direction. Going down 18, 20% year over year. In my county in South Florida, in our MLS system, 22,000 single-family residential homes for sale. 50% of all the inventory was short sales or foreclosures. What do you think happened to that strategy selling condo conversions? Disappeared. Now, if your strategy is doing this, praying to the real estate gods, that is a weight loss program. You will get a job driving Uber pretty quickly doing that. I promise you. You have to pivot with the marketplace, yes? You have to recognize I'm in a different environment. So I did. I had a guide at the time who was telling me, hey, you need to call expired listings. Now, that was good advice for that slice in time. Why? Because they were historically, they will never be that high again, probably. We were getting 300 expireds a day, Kimberly. I couldn't even call them all. It's like shooting ducks in a barrel. I did 100 transactions one year, 75 were expired listings. Yep. We rode that wave hard. And then do you know what happened? Oh, made me so mad too, by the way. Marketplace got better. Interest rates went down. Oh, and Bradley, what happens when interest rates goes down to expired listings? Oh, they go away. That's what happens. And I'd love to say that I very maturely and professionally said, well, you know, Kathy, looks like this environment is changing. I need to pivot. That is not what I did. I did what you guys do. You know what you do, Peter? You throw an adult temper tantrum. That's what you do. For months. Why? Because money has an addictive quality, and because of it, we get addicted to the way that we receive it. We have a quirk in our thinking called resulting, meaning because it was this way once, I mean, it's always going to be that way. That is not true. So for about 90 days, banging my head against the wall, banging my head against the wall, and a recognition, there's not enough leads here for me to continue to keep growing. Anybody felt that way over the last 12, 18 months? And I knew it, but I was still resisting doing something different and changing, pivoting to a new lead source for a different environment. But I had a guide in my life, and he said, hey, you need to diversify your prospecting. I said, what do you mean? He's like, you're only calling one source, and that source is shrinking. And he said, hey, just so you know, you live in heaven's waiting room. I live in Florida. We have the largest elderly population on the planet. You should probably pay attention to that lead source. I was like, that's something to think about. And then what I did is I do what I always do when I don't know something is I got access to a guide. I actually purchased a course where I could learn how to do this, learn how to get the contact information, what I was looking for at the courthouse, how to get phone numbers, and then specifically what to say and how to say it, who needs to sign documentation, learning the legal aspect of probate so I can provide guidance there, not just with selling the real property, creating ancillary services for these families. And what ended up happening is within 4 months of calling this lead source, I started to take 3 to 4 listings a month, and I completely stopped calling expireds and never called them again. I went from 100 transactions to 200 deals a year, twice from that lead source. Now, I believe that everybody on this call, with the right kind of understanding as to why this lead source is such a plentiful lead source and will continue to be for an extended period of time, with an ability to get past some of these internal blocks that we have with calling this lead source, because I know you have them, otherwise you'd be calling them. And with being equipped with specifically what to say and how to say it and how to build these ancillary lead sources, ancillary services that you can connect them with that can add value, because whoever adds more value wins. Write that down. Whoever adds more value wins. Because anybody can help them list the home, yes or yes. Yep. Hey, just so you know, Chuck, we all use the same photographers. And no, you don't have buyers in Venezuela. I know you don't, you know you don't, so stop telling people that. I believe that you could do everything that I've done with this lead source, if not more, and faster. I've spent the last 17 years of my career. I sold over 2,000 homes, 80% listings sold. I started a coaching company 10 years ago that was named by Housing Wire in 2025, top 25 coaching companies for agents that want to know what to say and how to say it. I used to own part of a Keller Williams office. I sold it back 3 years ago. And in 3 years, I've attracted 440 agents in 16 states to EXP with the elite builders. So what we're going to do for the time that we have allotted today, I always like to think to myself, what could I share with you that if you got like 3 things, you'd be 80% of the way there, right? So what I'm going to share with you is those three things. Number one, why this lead source is an amazing lead source specifically for the environment that we're in. Yes, because we went from 6.5 million transactions to 4 million transactions. And by the way, that's been persistent for the last 3 years. Now, did you know that the last time the Fed funds rate was this high, it stayed that high for a decade? Did you know the last time interest rates jumped this high, it stayed that high for a decade? Ask yourself a question. Are your lead sources prepared for a decade of this amount of transaction volume? Don't ask me that, Aaron. Can we talk about motivation? That makes me feel better. Okay. Second thing we're going to talk about is these internal beliefs that you have to overcome. And you have to rewire your brain on how you think about it. Yeah. So that way you can actually reach out to the family members and the beneficiaries, which I would suggest is more effective and efficient than going to attorneys, because attorneys think they're smarter than you and they have gatekeepers. And if anybody's on this call as attorney, no disrespect, but you think that way, so it's fine. And then the third is how to build these ancillary services that can help families, right? Because again, whoever adds more value wins. Anybody can help them list the property. So the first one, why are probates such an amazing lead source? Well, again, we've gone from 6.5 million transactions to 4 million. And that's persistent. Anybody notice, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, the gurus are like, rates are coming down, baby. You just wait. Anybody notice that hasn't happened? Yeah. So we now have data to make data-driven decisions around lead sources. So what I've noticed is that the gurus in our space, they have a tendency to triangulate around what I call the 4 horsemen. Expireds, canceled, for sale by owners, just listed, just sold. And they change the flavor of the week depending on the market and what's going on. Yes? The problem with those lead sources, it's not that they're bad, guys. They're red oceans. You know what a red ocean is? Lots of sharks in the water and lots of blood in the water. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a great white. I can push into red oceans and get my unfair share. Yes? Wouldn't you much prefer, though, to swim in a blue ocean where there's not that much sharks and not that much blood in the water? Yepers. Did you guys know that in business, it's not like the Olympics. You don't get special like points for doing stuff that's exceptionally hard. So instead of trying to jump over 10-foot walls, just jump over 1-foot walls. Yeah. Simple is easier and it's usually better. So it makes logical sense that I make data-driven decisions. I need a lead source that has a high density of motivated sellers in them. Why? Because what in the world? Did you know that like 93% of all homeowners in the United States have an interest rate less than 6%? Something like 60% have interest rates less than 4%. You guys will shop on Amazon for an hour to save $50. You think somebody's going to give up their 4% mortgage rate? Mm-mm. The only people who have to sell in this environment, who are going to sell, have to. Yes? If they say to Chuck, well, Chuck, you know, I just want a little bit more room for my dog in my backyard. No, they're not going to be motivated enough. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So I need a lead source that has a high density of motivated sellers. Now, how do we know it has a high density of motivated sellers? What is the second largest cohort, meaning group of humans in the United States behind millennials? Drop in the comments. Some of you are on this call. I could see by the gray hair. Baby boomers. That's right, Jeff. Does anybody know what the average age of a baby boomer is right now? 65. Mm-hmm. Do you know the only way you can avoid probate is to have all your assets in a trust? 95% of the population does not have their assets all in a trust, which means it all needs to be probated. What's the probability that this is going to be a very plentiful lead source moving forward for the next 10, 15 years as baby boomers? Yes. Oh, I see some heads nodding. Oh, yeah, this logically makes sense, does it not? Did you know that these homes, statistically, 65% of them are free and clear? Wow. That means they have a lot of what? Equity. Is that a requirement in order to sell, ladies and gentlemen? Mm-hmm. What else is very, very high with this group? Motivation. A motive to take action, a reason for doing something. Yes? So let's put it all together. We have a tsunami of people 65 or older, which like 67% of that group owns a home. Yeah? That are continuing to get older. The vast majority of them don't have all their assets in a trust, needs to be probated. Of those homes, 65% of them are free and clear. Does this sound like a pretty awesome lead source to pay attention to moving forward? Yep. Logically and practically, it does. Okay. So that's why probate. It's a blue ocean. A lot of people stay away from it because they have these internal beliefs, which can take us to the next thing. So drop in the comments, like, what are some internal beliefs? Because everything I've said to this point is logical and practical, yes? Airtight. So keep in mind, if you have results and you have behaviors, most people come to me as a coach or a guide and they want me to help them to change their behavior. The issue is what's behind that is beliefs. If you don't change the belief, the behavior will never stick. Yeah? How many people besides me have ever like been focused on like changing a behavior and it doesn't stick? Well, the reason is because you haven't changed the belief behind it. So drop in the comments the belief that would stop you from reaching out to these people. What are the internal beliefs that would get in the way? Yep, good, Jeff. Very, you see that adjective? Very complicated process. Oh my gosh, they're grieving and they don't want to talk to me. I'd be a little pesky agent. I'm an ambulance chaser. I don't know enough about probate. These are great, guys. Write this down. Excuses are tools for the incompetent, built upon mountains of nothingness, and those who use them seldom succeed. It takes some time. It's hard to find the correct person, Chuck says. Yeah, I have to go through lawyers who don't respond. All of this is great, guys, because I need you to understand this list are all the reasons why you don't take advantage of this lead source. Now, let's go through them one by one, and I'll share with you my kind of thought process with regards to it, okay? So it's a very complicated process. Well, the way I think about that, Jeff, is I'm glad it's complicated because if it wasn't, everybody would do it and the pay would drop dramatically. Did you know if you could become a doctor in a weekend like course, everybody would, and they would make like $30,000 a year. That's what would happen. Now, I don't have anything to offer. Well, is that something that you have the capacity to do something about, Kimberly? Yes. Because you don't get more because you want more. You get more because you become more. That's the part we don't like. So how can I become more? Well, I can learn about the legal aspect of probate in my geographic area. I can learn where to get contact information. I can learn how to add value to these people in terms of ancillary services, which we'll get to in a moment. So you have control over that. They're grieving and they don't want to talk to me. So here's what I find is super interesting. You know, having made thousands of these calls and listed probably 500 probate, because I was listing 50 to 60 a year for an extended period of time when I made the pivot, probably for like 5-6 years in a row. If anybody's ever gone through this process before, there are two components. There's the practical component, which is the house. It's full of contents. You know, I got to get stuff cleared out, you know, donate to local charities, things of that nature. And then there is the emotional component, yes? And if you are the personal representative, do you know what all your siblings are doing while you're going through this process typically? Where's the money, bro? So it's an overwhelming process. So imagine for a moment, Kimberly, you had somebody reach out to you who's competent and professional, who could give you guidance to help make that process smooth and easy and take stuff off of your shoulders and put onto theirs. You would view that person not as annoying, but as what? A God. You know how many people said to me out loud, they'd be like, Sandra, I did not know what I was going to do, and then you called me. You see how if you have that belief, I'm like, oh, they don't want to talk to me, versus the belief that I just shared with you, how will you show up in the world? Much differently. Ambulance chaser. Yeah. And out of all the calls that I made, did some people say that to me? Sure. I get that. And again, what I view myself as, because here's the thing. Do you know who's known about this lead source forever, guys? Investors. And I'm curious, is their goal and objective benevolence? Are they trying to do old Pete a favor by buying the home at 40% below fair market value? They'll like to convince you that they are. So the way I view this is, instead of being like I'm an ambulance chaser, bro, I am the white hat. Do you know how many families, guys, when they listed the property with me, prior to listing the property, they had multiple offers from other individuals, like investor types, and the investor had offered them $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 below we can get on the open market, and I helped them net in their pocket, the family's pocket, like $55,000 more. So I don't view this as I'm ambulance chasing. I view this as I'm really the white hat that has the capacity to help the family net a lot of money. Now, do I get compensated when I help them? Yes. At the same time, in order for that to make sense, I have to be able to net them more than what they could if they sold privately. And more often than not, everybody look at me, more often than not, that is the case. By tens, if not, more thousands of dollars. Okay. I don't know probate. You could do something about that. Hard to find the correct person. Well, it's so difficult to find the phone numbers, guys. There's services out there to find it, yes? Not complicated. Don't do that. I've been telling my son, because he's playing soccer now, and he plays travel, and he's got to do like conditioning. I keep telling him every morning, hey, you should get up, go for a run. Hey, you should get up, go for a run. Hey, you should get up, go for a run. You know what wins usually? Video games. You know what wins? Something else. It's not hard to find the right person if you know where you're looking. It takes time. Hey. Of course it takes time. Anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly before you can learn to do it well. You're going to have to learn how to do this. But here's the thing, is if you're think about what's happened in your business over the last 18, 24 months, 36 months. Most agents I know, volume's down. Most agents I know, income's down. Yeah? And they're sitting here thinking AI and all this other stuff's going to solve the problems. Look at me. It won't. You need a better lead source. That's what it is. Yeah? It's not driving traffic to your landing page because you don't have any attention anyway. Okay? You don't have to go through the lawyers. You can go directly to the beneficiaries. Okay? And we'll talk about, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, waiting for interest rates to go down. Yeah, it's a weight loss program. Don't do that. Okay, cool. So I think we've sufficiently handled this idea of like these beliefs that get in the way. They're just really what's underneath them is you're just afraid. Yeah? Whether somebody has faith or not, you know what the number one exhortation in the Bible is? Don't be afraid. Okay? We're just afraid, but all of these things, like we can overcome them with different beliefs and different recognizing that we have control over gathering information and things of that nature. Now, the third is, let's do this. So first what we can do is like, I'm going to talk to you about some ancillary services, but before I do that, my dog's getting excited about this. I don't know if you can hear him. He's excited about this conversation. So, what we can do is we can talk about like that initial conversation when you make that initial phone call. Right? Because I know that that trips up a lot of people. So I'll share with you what that sounds like, and then we'll have a conversation about like these ancillary services. Okay. So, you know, you were saying like, oh man, I don't want these people to like, you know, they'll think I'm bothering them. Well, here's the thing. You want to position yourself as a guide to help people to solve their problems. There are two things you have to deploy to be perceived as a guide. Number one is empathy. It's not authority. It's empathy. Two is competency. Usually the way we deploy competency is we're like, don't you know who I am? My name is Brad Carr. I've been selling real estate for 25 years in this area. But it's the lowest form of like influence is authority. Anybody besides me ever been in the presence of somebody who asks a series of detailed questions that you didn't even consider or think about and recognize you're in the presence of a professional? That's how you demonstrate. So what that would sound like, let's say you make that initial call and you're like, hey, you know, hi, my name is Aaron Novello. I'm a local real estate agent here in blank, right? My head researcher pointed out to me that very shortly, if not already, you will be appointed the personal representative in the, forgive my pronunciation, Higdon estate. And I realize I do sincerely that I may be a little premature in some way. I was calling very respectfully, of course, with regards to the real property here off 1265 Plum Street, simply just to find out if ultimately at some point, the goal and objective of yourself, and it looks like your siblings, Susie and Tom, was to get that property on the market and to get it sold. Then be quiet. So I'm deploying, again, empathy first. I recognize I may be a little premature in some way. I was calling very respectfully, of course, with regards to the real property on 1265 Banana Street. Simply just to find out if ultimately, at some point, you and your siblings, looks like Susie and Tom and Jim, why am I naming them? When I say Susie and Tom and Jim, do you know what Chuck says and what he thinks in his head? Oh, he knows them. He's aware of the situation. Yeah? Moving towards competency. And then they're either going to say yes, no, or we don't, like, maybe, right? More often than not, it'll be yes, or we're not sure. Probably 20, 30% of the time, it'll be no. Now, if it's yes or we're not sure, that's okay. My job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Right? The reason I was reaching out is that I oftentimes find that when families are making decisions with regards to what to do, and either way is fine, whether to sell or not to, that it can be very helpful or useful for them to get a clear, realistic picture of equity. Right? So in other words, if, and I'm clear that that is an if, you guys did decide to sell the real property in its current condition in the current market, what will be the most amount we could expect to receive for it? And net bottom line, what the proceeds would be to you and your siblings when it all shakes out. I guess I'm curious, do you think at some point that could be helpful or useful for you and your family? Notice I'm offering something, yes? The best way to show somebody you can help them is to help them for free. Okay. Now they're either going to say, oh, well, you know, yeah, like I got some insight from like Zillow. Yeah, you know, I appreciate that. And you know, it's interesting because these online sites, they tell you in the definition of their estimate of value particularly Zillow in our geographic area, you could be plus or minus like 7 to 10%. Did you know that? And they're like, no, I didn't know that. Yeah. So if it's saying it's worth like 700, they're saying it could be worth 630 or 770. And that's a huge range. So I find that when families are having conversations, it actually serves them best to get a tighter picture of equity. And we can look at that together as a team. Now, I oftentimes find as well, whether a family decides to sell or they don't, and again, either way is okay, that they could use some extra help or assistance in preparing a property, either to put on the market or to keep. Example being like, maybe some getting contents cleared out or donated to local charities, some light handyman work, maybe like an estate sale or things of that nature. I guess I'm curious, do you think any of that would be of help or assistance to you and your family at some point? Again, adding value, yes? And they're going to be like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. Maybe at some point, that'll be helpful. Like, okay, cool. So with all that being said, may I make a suggestion? Well, yeah. Well, based on what you've been kind enough to share with me, I'm hearing a couple things from you very clearly. The first is you're not exactly sure what you're going to do next, and that's perfectly okay. Because again, I'm here to help, not here to talk you into doing anything. The second thing I'm hearing from you is that the more information you can gather right now in terms of, if you guys did decide to sell the property, what would be the most amount you could expect to receive, as well as some of these ancillary services, the better equipped you guys will be as a family so you can make the decision that you feel is best when the time is right. So what I'd like to do is this, Pete. I have a lot of clients that are in a similar stage in the process. And what we do initially is we schedule just a very simple 10, maybe 15-minute, no obligation phone or Zoom appointment where we can see each other. Bless you. And what I can show you is a couple things pretty clearly. The first is again, realistically in its current condition in the current market, what will be top dollar and the most amount we could expect to receive, and what the proceeds will be to you and your family when it all shakes out. The second is I can give you a list of vendors that are licensed, bonded, and insured that, we have no financial incentive there. These are just people we know and trust. And, some of these other ancillary services that could be helpful or useful for you. So at least this way, whatever you decide to do, whether you sell it or you don't, me or somebody else, you'll have all the most important information you need so you can make the decision that you feel is best in terms of how to proceed. Does that sound? Notice, who is that all about? I'm curious. Yeah. And who do we make it all about when we call them? Don't you know who I am? I sold 10 homes last year. I'm God's gift to real estate. I am the neighborhood specialist. I do open houses like nobody does them. Right? So, yeah, the conversation's not, and then from there, it can go in different directions, right? They're like, oh, my attorney, says we have to wait and this and that, right? So I have some videos online on my YouTube channel where we go in more depth on the conversation. So you can check those out. Those are free. So now the third thing, and then we'll open it up for some kind of Q&A for the time that we have left. The third thing is this ancillary service thing. And the thing I want you to be really clear on is that anybody can help them to sell the home. Yes or yes? I know, we don't like to admit that. You're like, well, I would do it better. But anybody can. Okay? Yeah. So anybody can. The issue becomes whoever adds more value win. Yes. So what do we typically lead with? Well, I can help you, Tracy. I have all of these marketing techniques and blah, 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 blah. Well, anybody can do that. So here's how you can add value. If anybody's been through a situation like this, there's a whole house full of contents. Yes. That is physically and emotionally difficult to go through. So if you can connect them with vendors who are licensed, bonded, and insured that can help them do an estate sale, that can meet them at the property, Tim, box up anything that has value to them and ship it back to their family. It's incredibly valuable. If you can connect them with local charities, because the estate gets a write-off in doing so, yes? That's incredibly helpful, right? If we had a vendor that owned a FedEx store, and she would go to them, meet them at the property when they fly into town, because usually the way that this works is Sherry will come into town, she'll take out personal contents that have sentimental value, and everything's left they're not interested in. Well, imagine if I could help Sherry facilitate that whole thing and make it really, really easy for her. Take as much off of her shoulders, put it onto ours, make it smooth and easy. So in other words, as she gets into town, we already have the estate sale people lined up. We already have the charity people lined up. We already have, if we're going to be doing any light handyman work, we send them over and they get, quotes. And then on top of it, I had somebody on my team, we called her like a project manager. So what I would say to them is like, hey, Sherry, I'm curious because I know you're like out in Tennessee and the property's here in Florida. I don't know if this would be helpful or useful to you. We actually have a project manager. She's my personal assistant, which would make her your personal assistant. And what she would do is she would oversee the process of preparing the property for sale. So like, in other words, if we need to get a charity over there, she'll give you names of the charities. We'll give them access. If we need to get estate sale people over there, they'll go over, give us a quote. Nothing happens until you give her the green light, right? If we need handyman work, she'll oversee that for you, get the quotes, report them back to you, and then just connect you with the vendors for payments. I'm wondering, would that be helpful or useful to you? And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And that's much better than the Joe Schmo agent being like, well, I can sell it because I'm the top agent in your market. No. Yeah. So you got to build a list of ancillary services. And then I guess just as like a bonus, the other thing is you have to learn like the language of probate, right? Because if you're going to play a game, like if we were going to play, like, let's say the game of American football, if you don't know what face mask is, you can't play. If you don't know what offsides is, you can't play, right? And this is no different. So you have to learn in your state, like the language. So like in Florida, which I'm an expert on, they call it a person representative. In California, they call it the executor. So they have different language for the game, right? And in Florida, like the procedurally probate is similar, but it's not specifically the same in each state. So each state does it a little bit different. So you have to learn how it works. So that way, when you're having conversations with people and somebody says to me like, oh, the attorney said we had to wait. I'm like, well, I appreciate that. And what I'm about to share with you is not to create urgency. It's just to let you know what your options are. And of course, whatever you decided, I support you 100%. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the state of Florida, the proceeds from the sale of a homesteaded property are actually shielded from creditors. Did you know that? And they're like, no, I didn't know that. Yeah, so even if your family member had creditors, like credit card bills, medical bills, they can't touch any of the money from the sale of the property. What's also true is that in the state of Florida, if a property is passing to linear heirs, there's no fighting or disagreement, right? Linear meaning like, siblings, brothers and sisters. And it's a homesteaded property. The proceeds, again, are shielded from creditors, and you can put on the market whenever you like. Did you know that? And they're like, no, I didn't know that. Yeah, so what we would do is we would just, because putting on the market and transacting are two different things. So what I'd like to do is just ask you a few quick questions. And my intention doing that is not to be nosy, just to give you more information that could be helpful or useful. Would that be okay? Yeah. So this looks like here was a homesteaded property for your family member, correct? It was their primary residence at the time of passing? Yes. And is there any disagreement amongst your siblings, or is everybody on the same page in terms of selling? No, everybody's on the same page. Is anybody challenging you being personal representative? No. Okay, so it's not a question of if you will be, it's just a question of when, correct? Yeah. So my professional experience is if you chose to. Oh, and by the way, before I share with you what the option is, how much is it costing you per month to leave it empty? Usually, if there's a mortgage, it's costing money. If there's condo, it's dues per month, it's taxes, right? So it might be like a couple $1,000s a month. So it's like, okay, so if there was a way where you could actually limit your out-of-pocket expense to carry the property, is that something you would be interested in? Well, yeah, what do you mean? Well, again, because it's passing to linear heirs, there's no fighting or disagreement amongst beneficiaries. It is a homesteaded property. You can put on the market whenever you like. We would get an offer, and we would put in the purchase and sales agreement that this sale is subject to X County Probate Court approval. We negotiate an extended closing period, 60 days. Usually takes 45, 60 days to get an offer anyway. That's acceptable in today's marketplace. So it gives us 100 to 120 days around the horn. That'll be ample time for the probate attorney in this instance, which I have this information, Chuck Morgan. And they're like, dang, you know Chuck? I'm like, nope, I just read off the paper. To get what's called an order to determine homestead, and the property could be sold and the funds could be dispersed right away. Now, I'm aware that that's a lot of information at one time. Does that make sense to you? And they're like, yeah, great. So with that being the case, may I make a suggestion? Boom, you go into a closing sequence. But do you see how me asking those questions, am I clearly competent? Do I clearly know what I'm doing here? Yes? because of the quality of the questions that I'm asking. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I think if you get that, you're 80% of the way there. So let's open it up for the remaining time that we have, the 18 minutes that we have left. Any questions, comments, concerns, observations, hallucinations around probate and why it's a great lead source?
It's excellent, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where do you get the leads? I mean, are there lead sources out there in terms of probates and stuff? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so
not something I've ever dug into myself.
Yep. So there's two ways to get it. The first way are these lead providers. Now, there's pros and cons to the provider. The pro is they just send you a CVS file. That's it. And then you can load it into your CRM and you start doing the calls, right? The con, in my experience, is twofold. One is they don't give you the information, like some of them only give it to you once a month, and that's like getting expired data once a month. Who beats up on this data are investors, bro. They hammer it. Okay? Right. They don't really call, they send tons of mail. So I would go on appointments and the seller would be like, hey, can I show you something? Like while they're signing listing paperwork, they would bring out literally like a garbage bag full of mailings and dump them on the table. And it would be everything from perfume to like all of these gimmicks, like don't go nuts trying to do your probate, all these gimmick stuff. So for that reason, like I'm not really like a huge fan of that data. The other thing is oftentimes with that data, depending on the provider, it's not complete. And by that, what I mean is they only give you like the person representative, but they don't give you the beneficiaries. So I've listed a lot of properties because I couldn't get a hold of the person representative, but I get a hold of their sister, who's a beneficiary. And then they give me contact information for the personal representative. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, and then the second way to get it, which in my opinion is superior, it's more time intensive, but it's superior for a few different reasons, is you actually physically go to the courthouse. Now, some courthouses across the country, they give you access that you have to pay for electronically. You just have to find out how they do it in your county. In my county, they don't give you access to it electronically. So I would send somebody to the courthouse to get it. Now, first I had to go do that, which was really annoying. Because if you can't tell, I'm a pretty type A personality. So me sitting there trying to gather the data is like plucking out my eyebrows one at a time. You know what I mean? But it was required in order for me to learn how to do it so I can teach somebody how to do it. Right. And then we would do that in 3 different counties. So Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County, we would gather all that data. And then we would take that data, we would use a software program to get the contact information. The issue with the software program is it's a great program. It's fantastic data, but it's not batch. So you have to do it one at a time. So I would have the individual who got from the courthouse, then go from the courthouse to their house where they would sit down in front of a computer. They would get the contact information one at a time and load it into follow-up bus for me. And then we would therefore from there call, text, email. So you just have to decide how you want to do it. I think again, like if you really, the other reason why I like the courthouse is because it's fresh. I get it once a week. So I'm getting the data really fast and it's complete. I get all of the information. I get all the beneficiaries. I get all the stuff, right?
Okay.
So that's just a decision that you have to make. When 2020 happened, like I was still in production and I couldn't get access to the courthouse. So I had to pay those vendors. I don't know how they were getting it, but I think they pay people on the inside. I really think they pay the courthouse like the clerk. But I would still list properties, but it wasn't as many because the data wasn't as good. Like I'd list like 2 or 3 a month instead of like 7 to 8. It's a good question though. So the way I view this is you need like a gun and you need bullets. So the gun is like the data and the bullets is the phone numbers. But then you need the specialized knowledge of the conversation, which I demonstrated quickly and briefly, but you need to know specifically what to say because it is a nuanced conversation. It's different. Like the foundation's similar in terms of asking questions, discovering problems, but it's a different conversation than let's say like an expired listing or like a for sale by owner. It's a specialized knowledge specifically around how to have these conversations, create urgency, so that way you can get agreement signed,
Right. Yeah. Do you have, and I was writing down as you were going over those scripts, I'm going to go back and watch the recording here once we get it done, but do you have any of those scripts available like on a PDF or something that you could share with us?
Yeah, so, well, I have, on YouTube. YouTube's like my public service, right? So yeah. I have lots
I posted your YouTube channel on here.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. So I have a lot of videos. I say 4 or 5, where I'm specifically walking through the probate conversation.
Okay.
On specifically what to say and how to say it. I do have a course on probate. So if people have interest in that, that includes like the scripts and includes like me walking through more in depth, like all the objections that come up because they
Gotcha.
will, how to create urgency, how to do all that stuff.
Okay. Very
Do you
cool.
have a link to your course? I think a couple
Yeah.
of people have
Sure, I'll drop
put
it in.
some questions in there. Yeah. How much is the course?
It's $1,000. Yeah, so I've taught it to a bunch of people. I actually taught it to Higgy, who's on this call, and he's taken a bunch of listings, and it's a big
You
source.
taught me part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, hey, I helped you to refine it, right?
You
So,
helped me refine it, yeah. But I tell you
Yeah.
what, man, Edify Aaron, Aaron was my coach and just one of the best agents in the country and one of the best coaches out there. So just you can glean a lot of knowledge from him, and he's actually refined the process. Question I have for you, Aaron, is, and I sort of know the answer to this. There's a timing aspect of motivation for executors from the time that the person passes, and sometimes that motivation goes up as the bills start coming in.
Yeah.
Have you seen a relation in that or correlation from timing on that from when you were doing it?
like it's interesting because my experience is with this lead source is that the motivation's really high. And I would say like 50% of the people, maybe 40%, like they're ready to go like right away. I'd say the rest, the remainder, like the 50, 60% remainder, it's like a time game. And there's a few reasons for that. One is the practical component, like Higgins talking about, which is, like the money starts to pile up. Some people have reverse mortgages. They don't realize like they're actually losing equity every month because it keeps going up, right? And oftentimes if there's an account which the expenses are coming out of, nobody has any motivation because they don't perceive that as being their money when in fact it is. Yeah, there's no like pain. The second component, though, that I'm respectful of, and you have to like learn to navigate, and I know you know how to do this, but it's the emotional component. Like I've watched people, bro, hold on to a property for a year for no reason other than it's just difficult to sell it because there's closure. I've watched people leave a home empty for like full of contents, full of furniture for like a year and a half for no other reason than they just don't want to step into it. So I think that, yeah, of course, like as the pain starts to increase, here's what I would find out. Like when I'm talking, here's the critical questions. So like, I'm curious. So let's say they're like, oh, we're not in a rush. I'm like, that's great. My job's to help you. It's never to talk you and do anything. I guess I'm curious. Do you think ultimately at some point the goal and objective will be to sell or just to hold on to it? And they're like, well, we're not sure what we're going to do next. And here's how you could flesh that out. Well, I'm wondering, Michael, if you had it your own way, because I know you have some siblings, which would you prefer? Keep it or to sell it? And then they'll tell you, well, I want to sell it. It's like, oh, interesting. So if you don't mind me asking, one of your siblings, like, do they have a desire to hold on to it, maybe do something else? Yeah, my sister, she wants to hold on to it as a secondary home. Okay, cool. And then I'm wondering, does your sister have them? Because, oftentimes, because I help so many families in these dynamics, it's not uncommon that one sibling wants to, hold on to a property. Having a desire to hold on to the property and having a financial ability are two different things. So I'm curious, do you think your sister has the financial ability to buy your other siblings out, or is it just wishful thinking? They'll tell you, bro. They'll be like, nah, dude, she doesn't have any money. Okay, so it sounds like with a high degree of probability, the property is going to be sold. It's just really you're trying to kind of preserve familial harmony. Is that right? And they're like, yeah, that's about right. So now I went from we don't know what we're going to do. Now I know what you're going to do. Right? And then I would ask, okay, and then in terms of like carrying the property, I know every month that goes by, maintenance, taxes, insurance, costing money. Is there still like a mortgage on the property or is it free and clear for you guys? No, there's still a mortgage. Okay. And then were you aware, I guess I'm wondering, I don't know if you know this, but now this is no longer a homestead or property. It's a secondary property for you and your siblings. And for that reason, the taxes are going to go up pretty significantly. Did you know that? And they're like, no. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking here in the tax rolls. They were like $1,000 for this condo. It's probably going to go up to 4,000 or 5,000. And again, my intention in sharing that with you is not to engender fear. It's just so you know what's happening. And I guess I'm wondering, here's the question, ready? So it's not uncommon sometimes that there's an account, a separate account that the carrying cost for the property is coming out of. Is that the case here? Or are you as the personal representative having to front it and keep records of it? They'll tell you. But here's why that's so important. If somebody, an individual, a human, is having to write checks every month, the motivation magically increases. It goes from we're not in a rush to when can I sell this dang thing?
Mm-hmm.
But you see how like surgical questions, like most people would have that conversation with that seller and be like, okay, well, if you're ready, when you're ready to think about it, call me. No, I'm going to ask you surgical questions to actually find out what the situation is, right? It's a long-winded answer to your question, Higgy, but
A great answer.
No, it's really good, especially the, the empathy part where it's a delicate balance of you're not showing up at the funeral home, slipping a card in the casket saying, "Hey, sorry about your loss. Call me when the house is ready." But there's that distance. They've got to be somewhat distanced from that process to think
yeah,
about it.
well,
This goes from
I,
mom and dad being dead to I got to sell this
yeah.
to take care of it.
Yeah, so I think there's two things going on. One is by me deploying what I would call like tactical empathy. So you have to have emotional intelligence. Now, women, you guys, I'm not a sexist comment, it's just true. You guys are better at this than most men, naturally. Like I had to learn how to tactically deploy empathy. You know what I mean? So, but tactically deploying empathy demonstrates that I recognize. So when I say something to you like, hey, I recognize that, there's two components here. One is the practical component, like selling the property, contents, things of that nature. The second is the emotional component. And I just need you to know, like, I'm aware of that, sensitive to that, right? I'm demonstrating to you, like, I get it, right? And the other thing is if you just are doing that tactic, cards, nursing homes, like that sort of thing, you're a pest. Now, if you position yourself as a guide to help them to solve their problems, you will be a welcome guest. And that's what you want to become. So if you notice, like in the brief kind of rundown that I gave you of that conversation, I didn't talk about myself. I'm constantly adding value. I'm constantly trying to help you to solve your problems. I'm a guide to help you to solve your problems. So I'm a welcome guest. Somebody putting cards, be like, hey, you heard grandma died? Like they're a pest. And you push them away. Do you know what the number one determinant of whether or not somebody will take an offer or not is? Who brings it to them? People don't say yes or no to opportunities. You know what they say yes or no to? People. So you just want to become the type of person somebody would say yes to without knowing what you're doing. The best way to show somebody you can help them is to help them for free. We just live in a world where people don't want to, it's super transactional. Like I'll only help you. Like I'll say people like, oh, you give them your list of vendors before they hire you? Yes. I give $1 million worth of game away for free online, for free. People are like, oh, like when do you monetize it? I'm like, I don't care if I monetize it. Because then you know what happens? I get on calls with people regularly. They say, hey, you know what, Aaron? Bro, I had 3 calls yesterday, 3 third-party calls. Every one of them. Hey, I've been watching your videos, like a lot of them, and they've been super helpful. And I'm thinking about joining EXP. They're saying yes to me, not to an opportunity. Yes? It's the same thing here, guys. It's no different.
Aaron, there are, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of sources for phone numbers. What have you found to be the best one to gather phone numbers from?
Yeah, it's Forewarn. Now, in my MLS system in South Florida, it's included in the dues. I don't know if it's in yours. It's not that expensive. It's like, if you have to pay for it, it's like $60. Now, they only allow you to look up a certain amount of people, like 150 lookups. I don't know what it is with the one that comes with MLS, maybe less than that. Now, because of the volume we were doing, we were pulling it out of 3 different counties. I would supersede that and they would cut me off. So I bought additional seats to be able to have more lookups. So it might have been like $60 per seat for every 150 lookups. Now, they will tell you, I will tell you too, it's so good in terms of data, they will tell you, Sherry, do not look up celebrities, because if you do, we'll kick you off the platform. Because you'll get like Shakira's cell phone number. But my buddy, one of my coaching clients in Miami did it, and he looked up like a basketball player. Bro, they called him within seconds. They say, you do that again, we're kicking you off the platform. Like, that's how good the data is. And the issue is it's only one at a time. So what I would suggest is because remember, like in residential resale transactions, there's income servicing activities, which is plan, PLAN, prospect, lead, follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. And there's income servicing activities. You only get paid to do the first one. So this kind of gathering of data, if you have a VA or an assistant or whatever, I would have you figure it out first and then give it to them to do it.
Good.
Good stuff. Anybody have any questions?
Any
for
last
Aaron?
questions,
We've got a
guys?
couple of
Yeah.
2-3 minutes left.
Yeah, Aaron, what was the name of that company again that you said for the lead source?
Meaning what? Like where you can, they'll give you probate data
Yeah.
or the phone numbers? Which one?
No, it was just you mentioned a lead source.
Yeah, so there's different
asked.
ones. So one would be like US probate leads. There's another one called All the Leads that I know of. And they do probate leads as well. And again, the challenge, just knowing, and this isn't me trying to dissuade you, it's just so you're clear. The challenge with that data is it's easy, right? They just send you a CVS file. The problem is that oftentimes it's not fresh. They send it to you once a month. So it's like other people have had it and banged on it in terms of like investors. And then the other issue is oftentimes it's not complete. They'll give you the person representative, but they won't give you any additional beneficiaries. It might be cool to like get started that way. Eventually, I would propose or suggest to anybody who wants to make this like a legit thing where you're taking like 50 listings a year from it, is to have somebody on your staff that gathers the data, because it'll be fresh and you're in control. Because whoever controls the lead controls how much it costs. So over time, they're just going to keep raising the price of that. You know what I mean?
And you said that's just by going down to the courthouse the good old fashioned way.
Right.
Good
Gather.
old fashioned way, baby.
Do you mind? Can you say what that conversation would be at the courthouse? What is it that
Yeah.
you'd say to them?
Yeah, it's simple. I mean, there's a segment at the courthouse. There's a division. It's called probate. And they have clerks there. Go in with a cup of coffee and a smile, the old school way, baby. Say, hey, I'm looking for probate data. How can I find it? They'll either point you to a computer, sit your butt down. Here's where you look. And it's trial and error. Like you just make mistakes. Like that's really, I know that's not like a fancy answer, but that's how I figured it out. Is just go down there, ask some questions. There'll probably be investors there gathering some data. You could talk to them. And really you just need a case number, and then you can like look through all of the cases going back for like a month, and you gather that, right. And what you're looking for some specific information. You want the date of death, right? I want to know that because I probably don't want to call them like the day after. Then I want the decedent, which is a fancy word for the person who died, their first and last name. I want their last known legal address, which is the real property. Then I also want any beneficiaries' information. Those are family members, and usually their addresses and stuff, because then you can use that information to get contact information.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you get a list like that, let's say the wife had passed and the husband still has the house, do you ever reach out to them, or is that just?
No, I've just noticed that over time, with a super high degree of probability, they're probably going to wait a year, because that's the like general advice, if they move at all. So if you do call them, I wouldn't, like my experience, and it also depends on your geographic area. So in other words, like I have so many of these leads, I don't have to do a lot of lead follow-up because you just got so many. You know what I'm saying? Like I can blow through and just off the top scrape off 8 a month, and I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? But if you're in a geographic area where you don't have as large of an elderly population, you do, people are passing away, like death and taxes, right? My pastor said one of the sermons, he said 10 out of 10 times you die. That's how it works. 10 out of 10. So if you have less, then yeah, maybe you call those people and you do some follow-up, you know what I mean? But just know that it's going to be a long-term thing. I would ask questions like, hey, I'm super respectful of that. I oftentimes find, and I don't know if this is true for you, family members are trying to decide, if they stay put or if maybe they go closer to family. Is that something you're considering? I'm curious if you did move, like where is that family member? Are you guys in conversation? All right, awesome. Well, I'm super respectful of that. So, I want you to feel very comfortable with the decision that you ultimately end up making. Now, before I let you go, do you have any questions or concerns or any comments? I know sometimes there's like a widower's tax that some people are concerned about if they have assets. Like, can I connect you with anybody that could be helpful or useful in some way, like a investment manager or, tax planner or anything like that? No, we're good. Okay, cool. Well, what I'll do with your permission is I'll just touch base with you. I'll circle back with you, from time to time. And, obviously I'm a resource for you. So if I can help, just let me know. And then I would follow it up, shoot them a bomb video, put a face and a name, maybe put them on like an email thing, and then just keep in contact with them. I would only do that though if like I don't have enough leads. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm getting, if you think about it, if I was getting 150 to 200 a week and I'm doing that in 3 counties, that's like 600 a week. I could just blow through them and find the ones that have to do something. You know what I mean?
Aaron, this is Tracy Wiggins in Atlanta and Nashville. Just first of all,
What up, boss moves?
what up? Your energy is just electrifying. So I can't even wait to get off the call. Just hop on your doggone podcast and just roll with it for the whole doggone week. You have been amazing. I love that haircut too. I used to do hair. So
Thank you.
I had an agent. She was a new agent. I just want to kind of tell the story and to see if you think I should have. I did it. We did. We got the listing, but I just want to see how you would have handled it. New agent, because I mentor like several, and she said, "Hey, you know, I'm going to my friend's funeral. She just lost her dad, and there's like 5 siblings and stuff." And she said, I know they're going to need to get rid of the house. So what do you think I should say to them? I feel so bad. I don't want to say anything. So I said, listen, you have to go to her and just say, I said, listen, when you give her that hug and everything and say, you're going to get a lot of calls from people, and it's going to be a lot of vultures and investors are going to come for y'all's property. I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. This is what my team and I, you know, we specialize in this to help you with the questions and things like that. I don't want you to think that I'm being insensitive in any way. I'm really trying to be proactive because they're going to come for you. So if you have any questions, I want to let you know I'm here for you. Excuse the noise in the background. Yeah. So was that the right way? Apparently it was. We got it.
Yeah, I love that.
So many people will run from that. So
No, I think as long as you lead from a place of contribution, you know, as long as you lead from a place of being of service.
yes, that's where it was. So
and helping. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, whether somebody has faith or not, like there's some good stories there. And he's like, hey, you know, do you love me? Yes. Do you love me? Yes. Do you love me? Yes. Then go feed my sheep. So like, as long as you lead with feeding, as long as you lead with like, hey, here's like, I could help or be of assistance in any way. I don't want, you know, and I think also too, stating your intention. Like I've learned that because if you don't state your intention, which is really you're setting the frame, people will make up what your intention is. And almost all of us, including everybody on this call, thinks everybody's intention is negative. So, hey, like my intention in sharing this with you is really coming from a place of like concern. Because what I know to be true is that you're going to get bombarded with like these vulture types that are going to call you and really try to steal the property from you guys. I just need you to know and understand if you have any questions, if you need anything, like I'm here for you and your family, independent of whether or not you choose to hire me or not.
Yeah. And that's what I did.
You see what I'm saying? Because like I value our relationship more than I do like, you know, the business stuff. It's just coming from a place of concern.
Yeah. So, I told her, I said,
and like meaning that though. So like, you know, it's funny. I had a coaching client one time and he was like, hey, I just had a realization. I'm like, what? He's like, when you say my job's to help you, it's not to talk you into do anything. You mean it. I was like, yeah, dude, this isn't like a technique that I use to get people to do what I want. Like I actually mean that. I'm unattached to the outcome. So I think it's a combination. It's stating the intention, leading with service, and then letting them know you're unattached to the outcome, like independent.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good because that's where we came from. I said, do you genuinely want to help this family? He said, yeah, I just don't want to feel like I'm hustling for the money. I said, are you hustling for the money? No. I said, so your heart is pure, but you do know you're a realtor and you do know that you can list this property. So whatever the outcome is, you just have to be okay with it if they snap on you, you know, because people are afraid to snap on a curve.
And then if they do prepare, like, hey, just so you know, like my intention isn't to be disrespectful.
Yes.
My intention instead is just to try to give you some information that could be helpful or useful in some way. I'm aware a lot of families that I speak to are actually super appreciative. Some aren't. Seems like you might be one of them. My sincere condolences for your family's loss. And I'm just like out. Like if I'm making phone calls and somebody says that to me and they snap, like I know they're not snapping at me.
Yeah, they're just in the middle.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, they're just projecting it onto me, but it has nothing to do with me.
Okay. I love that, man. You've been awesome. I can't wait. I'm podcasting and I'm going to probably definitely going to probably do your coaching too. Thank you so much for that.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, I'm glad it was helpful or useful. That's the intention. So I'm noticing our time. What I will leave you guys with is that we have data now. And what I find so interesting is that we keep like circulating the same lead sources independent of the data. And that seems like kind of silly, right? Where we have a better way to make decisions, data-driven decisions around lead sources. I think with a very high degree of probability, the environment that we are in is going to persist. Now, when I say this to people, they're like, well, you know, you're being negative. You better look on the positive side, Aaron. I'm like, that's dumb. Don't confuse truth with negativity just because you don't like it. Okay? The amount of progress that a man or woman experiences is directly correlated to the amount of truth that they can withstand. Most people can't withstand truth. They run away from it. Okay? Truth wears a crown of thorns, right? So, like, that's just the truth. So the cool part is everybody on this call has a decision to make. The decision, decide. Do you know what the suffix "ide" means? Homicide, suicide, pesticide, genocide. It means to kill off other options. Yes? So we all have a decision to make around lead sources. And if I know with a high degree of probability, nobody has a crystal ball, including me, I'm just looking at data and making directional decisions, directional bets, that with everything that's going on economically, the United States credit rating going down for the first time in 100 years, if you think that's not going to affect what we do, you're crazy. And with transaction volume and everything that's going on in the world, that this isn't going to persist for a while, that's, if you want peace, prepare for war. Yeah. It's not a realistic expectation. So there is this lead source. It's available to all of you and they need your help, guys. They really do. Who's helping them instead are investors who are like, yeah, we're doing you a favor while we're ripping out chunks of flesh. Yes. They shouldn't even be in the picture. We allow them to be because we don't reach out to them. Guess what? If they want a cash offer, you can make them a cash offer. If they want retail, you can do the retail thing. So it's a great resource. I think those that pivot will continue to get their unfair share and actually make more money in that environment. But it's directly correlated with your skill, your specialized knowledge, and your willingness to learn new things. The most expensive thing you own is a closed mind. Don't keep your mind closed to this. It's an awesome resource. So my name is Aaron Novello. If I can help you or be of assistance in any way, just let me know. And appreciate you guys. If I see you at an event, come up and say hello.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Such good stuff. Such good
Great
stuff.
stuff.
So, you guys got his YouTube. You got the link to his training and coaching if you want to pursue this field. And I do agree with what you said in the very beginning. This particular niche or niche, however somebody wants to say that, is here to stay for a while. You know, with the whole baby boomer market. So, anyway, again, great stuff, Aaron, and thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Be great. Talk soon.
Thanks,
Thank
Aaron.
y'all.
Guys, have a
See
great
y'all.
day. We're here if you need
Bye-bye.
us. Okay?